The Red Room was a top-secret Soviet brainwashing and assassination training program for stolen and displaced girls. All the girls sent to the Red Room were trained to become the world's most elite spies and deadliest assassins, and only about 1 in 20 survived to become Black Widows. All failures would be terminated. The exact origins of the Red Room are currently unknown, but its history within the Marvel Cinematic Universe goes back nearly a century to the 1930s, where a young girl who would eventually be known as Dottie Underwood began her training. During this era of the Red Room, the girls would watch various media from the United States, including Snow White, so that they could gain an understanding of American life and learn to fit in when they would eventually be sent overseas throughout the coming decades and throughout the Cold War. These videos would contain certain subliminal messages, such as instill, fear, and pain, to slowly brainwash the children over time. Each girl was handcuffed to their beds at night to prevent escape attempts, and during the day, they were put through a training program that, while horrific, was felt to be necessary to mold them into Black Widows. When they weren't being indoctrinated or brainwashed, they spent their time training in hand-to-hand combat, acrobatics, brutal ballet, and to hone their tactical prowess. However, the Soviets did plan for occasions where their widows may be captured and tortured. So as part of their training regimen, the girls were forced to pull out their own teeth, nails, and hair to become more desensitized to pain. Not only were they forced to inflict pain on themselves, they would also be tortured by the various administrators of the Red Room, which included being burned with blowtorches. Friendships within the Red Room were not uncommon, and they were even encouraged, as the girls would eventually be put into head-to-head fights. Dottie and her good friend Anya were put into one of these combat scenarios, and after defeating her friend, Dottie was forced to kill Anya, which was meant to sever her ability to form and maintain attachments. This method was expanded upon further when it came to firearms training, where the girls would be given live, human targets to practice on. After surviving the Red Room, the small percentage of graduates would go through a final ceremony where they were sterilized, which would prevent the girls from ever bearing children, which, could end up compromising the Black Widow if they were allowed to do so. Following the Second World War, Peggy Carter, now working alongside the Strategic Scientific Reserve in the United States, teamed up with some of Captain America's Howling Commandos, and together they infiltrated the Red Room Academy, where they found a young Black Widow crying in a corner of the room. Not knowing what they had stumbled into, they attempted to help the girl, who stabbed Dum Dum Dugan and ended up killing Howling Commando member Junior Juniper. Eventually, General Dreykov was appointed as the head of the Red Room Academy, and in the 1980s, he purchased a young Natalia Romanoff from her family and brought her into the Red Room to undergo the Black Widow training. Having begun her training younger than the age of 6, Natalia was a star pupil and quickly shot up the ranks, and she eventually spent 3 years undercover in Ohio along with Yelena Belova, Melina Vostokov, and Alexei Shostakov. After accomplishing their mission, Natalia, now going as Natasha, as well as Yelena, were taken to the Red Room, where the younger Yelena would begin her training. Toward the end of her training, Natasha pretended to fail her tests so that she could keep training and avoid the involuntary hysterectomy that all graduates were forced to undergo. However, her handler, Madam B, picked up on this, and Natasha was eventually forced to go through the graduation ceremony. Natasha would spend the next few years as a Black Widow agent for Dreykov, and eventually S.H.I.E.L.D. became aware of Natasha and sent one of their top agents, Clint Barton, to execute her. However, he made a different call and recommended that she become an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. To become a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, Natasha was forced to divulge any and all information she had about the Red Room and work with Barton to take down the Academy, as S.H.I.E.L.D. felt that The Red Room had too much influence, with their Black Widows spread all throughout the world. Enough influence to topple entire regimes and take out kings of nations. As a final mission before finally defecting to S.H.I.E.L.D., Natasha Romanoff and Clint Barton were tasked with killing the leader of the Red Room, General Dreykov. After tracking him to Budapest, Black Widow and Hawkeye rigged explosives and blew up the building Dreykov and his daughter were in to eliminate him. While Romanoff and Barton assumed that Dreykov was killed in the blast, both he and his daughter survived and continued to operate the Red Room even more secretly than before, with S.H.I.E.L.D. believing that the program had been terminated for good. To stay under, or in this case above the radar, Dreykov turned the Red Room into a floating fortress, which he could fly across the world, making the station nearly impossible to find. During this time, Dreykov improved the brainwashing techniques which originated early on in the Red Room's history by developing a way to completely control the actions of the Black Widows, removing the possibility of another defection like Natasha Romanoff's. Eventually, a cure for the mind control was developed in secret, and after being freed from Dreykov's control, Natasha's younger sister from the undercover Ohio mission, Yelena, contacted Natasha. The two worked alongside their former adoptive parents from the same mission to locate the Red Room, free the Black Widows from Dreykov's control, kill the Russian leader, and send the Red Room crashing down from the sky, ending the program once and for all. So that is the entire history of the Red Room as we know it within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The Black Widow solo film did a lot to shed some more light on the history of the Red Room, and it was an interesting tale of Black Widow's history, which we did not know much about prior to this film. Be sure to let us know down in the comments which subject in the Marvel Cinematic Universe you would like a breakdown of next, and remember the motto, it's Black Widow over everything, and I'll see you guys next time.